Hello everyone. In this video I am going to cover the new AgilePoint NX connector for ServiceNow. I'm in Process Modeler at this point of time, and if you see there is a new connector available over here for ServiceNow, and there are various process actions which are available. There's add attachment, create a record, delete attachment, delete a record, get a single record using ID, query multiple records using a specified filter criteria, and update record. So those are the actions which are available out of the box. And I'm going to demonstrate it using a sample process which you see on the screen right now. So I have a form, and if I open this form, this is where I'm going to enter some of the incident related details. So as you can see, some basic information about the incidents, which is short description, caller, category, assigned to description, state, urgency, and I'm going to also add an attachment over here. So once this form is submitted, the first action I'm going to take is I'm going to create an incident record within ServiceNow. So I have dragged and dropped a create record action in this case. If you double click on it, each of the shape has generic properties like display name and description. And if I click on next, this brings me to the ServiceNow specific configuration screen. So I can create an access token on how to connect it to ServiceNow. My IT might have created one as well. In my case, I'm using a global level access token. So if I go back to my manage center, if I go back to access tokens, there's an access token which is already created over here. I'm going to put it in edit mode. So the connector supports both basic authentication and OAuth 2 authentication. In my case, I'm using OAuth 2 authentication. So what I select this radio button, provide my client ID and client secret. The redirect URI is populated by default. This is the URI for the current portal, which is beta.nx1.com in my case. And once this is done, it generates an OAuth 2 code for me, which is over here, which is renewed automatically every half an hour. So all this is done automatically for you. You have to just provide the client ID, client secret, and generate an OAuth 2 access token one time. So once this is done, let's go back to our process model. So that is available for the users in the dropdown. I'm going to select that. Based on the access token from the dropdown, I can select which all tables from ServiceNow are available to me. I have selected incident table in this case. Next, I can provide a mapping between my application fields as well as ServiceNow fields. So on the left hand side, what you see is the process fields and the form fields, which is my application schema. And on the right hand side, what you see is the ServiceNow schema for the incident table. So I can do a quick mapping between the various fields. And that's it. Once the record is created, it is going to send me back the record ID, and if I'm interested in storing it, that's going to be stored in a process variable in my case. So I created a process variable called store record ID, and that's what I'm going to use. Now the next action I'm going to cover is add an attachment. So if I double click on it, click next. Because the attachment uploaded from the form is living in some sort of a document repository, it asks me to select my source repository. In this case, I have used Google Drive as a repository. So form uploaded the attachment to Google Drive. I've kept the folder path as dynamic, so it has the whole path to the file in this case. And I take that attachment from Google Drive, and then I'm going to add it to my incident record. So again, I select my access token. My table is incident. Remember, when the first step, when I created a record, it sent me back the record ID. So I say that for which record should I upload this attachment? So I dragged and dropped that variable from process variable. And once the attachment is added, each attachment within ServiceNow has an attachment ID and a URL. So I'm storing those into, again, two more process variables which have been created over here. Again, this is up to you if you wanted to store it or not, but as a best practice, it's better to store it. Now the next step is we are going to update the incident itself. So again, I have an eForm in this case. And it is some basic fields. I'm going to change the state, assigned to, and the description. Once those are done, I have dragged and dropped the update record shape over here. I'm going to click on update record. I called it update incident as a display name. Again, here is my connection string. Here is my table name, which is incident in this case. I want to update the record whose record ID is stored in my variable, process variable in this case. And then again, I provide a mapping between my application schema and the ServiceNow schema. Next, we are going to read information out of ServiceNow in this case. So I'm going to double click on this. I use the get record activity. So in the get record activity, I called it get incident detail. Connect to ServiceNow. I want an incident record whose record ID is equal to this. And I have two options over here. I can either map the response to the application schema, or I can store it in a variable. Most likely you are going to do the application schema, so I'm going to select that radio button. On the left hand side, because now ServiceNow is the source system, you see the ServiceNow schema, and on the right hand side what you see is the application schema, and I again provide the mapping between the two systems. As you can see here, I have provided the mapping between the two systems. Now once I have fetched these values, I wanted to show it that it is working fine, so I have actually put it on a form. So this form shows me the incident detail which has been retrieved from ServiceNow. The next activity is query multiple incidents. So this one was querying it based on the incident ID. However, what if I wanted to query it based on some other criteria and it might return me multiple records? So that's where query multiple record activity comes into picture. So in this one, I said query multiple records from the incident table where category equal to hardware. So you are going to provide your filter criteria. So column name equal to value, and you can have a complex condition as well. In my case, I had coded it to hardware. It could have been a variable in there as well. And then again the same thing, I can either map it to the application schema, which is a repeating node within the application schema, or I can map it to a variable. So if you see, I have mapped a repeating node in this case. I map the parent node and then all the child nodes over here. So on the left hand side, again what you see is the ServiceNow schema, which is the source system in this case. Right hand side, what you are seeing is the AgilePoint application schema. So again, I have a form. It has a repeatable subform which can be used to show these records. So as you can see, I have a repeatable subform with these 6 fields, which shows multiple rows I have been fetched from the ServiceNow system. Next, I'm going to delete the attachment. So I'm going to use the delete attachment shape. So same attachment which I uploaded earlier in the process. I'm going to point to ServiceNow and then just provide the attachment ID. Remember, I stored the attachment ID when I was adding the attachment, so I use the same attachment ID. I've put a 30-second delay over here so that you can follow it, and then it is going to delete the actual incident itself. So I have used the delete record activity in this case. Again, it's quite simple. You can point it to ServiceNow incident table and provide the record ID. So now let's look at this in action. I'm going to move to Work Center. I'm going to go to My Apps. And I'm going to click on ServiceNow process. I'm going to start entering the basic incident detail. I'm going to say I need a new Windows server. I'll select caller as Benjamin. This is a hardware request. It has been assigned to Andrew. And for the description, I am going to just put some description that I need a Windows Server 2019 VM with an 8 GB RAM. State is new. Urgency is high. And I'm going to upload a file, maybe a system requirement document. So this attachment is right now stored on Google Drive in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and click Submit. So now if I go back to the Processes tab over here, I have a new process which has been kicked off. I'm going to click on it, and I can see the process viewer, and I can see that these activities have already been executed. So if I switch back to ServiceNow in this case and search for incident under service desk, there's an incident created over here with all the details which I selected. So the caller is Benjamin, and the description, as you can see, is the same as what I entered on the screen. And there is an attachment over here called AgilePoint system requirement. I'm going to go back to the process model, and I'm going to quickly update the description from here. So I'm going to open the task. I'm going to say move it to in progress. This is now assigned to a new user, and the description has been modified as well. So once I submit it, it moves on to the next activity. So now you can see that the incident has been updated, and I also have fed the incident detail. So I'm going to go back and click refresh. And as you can see, the modified description is showing up, and the new name is also showing up in the assigned to status. If I go back to my process model, it also retrieved the information about this incident from the system, which I'm going to show on the form. So I'm going to open this form, and all that information is retrieved from ServiceNow in this case and shown on my form. I'm going to go ahead and click submit so that I can move this process forward. Next, it is querying multiple records from ServiceNow. Now once these records have been fetched, I can again go back and open my form, and I can see multiple records being retrieved from ServiceNow, and the last record is the record which I just now created for the Windows Server request. So as you can see, the category is hardware in this case. That means the filter criteria is working fine as well. Click submit. So it moves forward, and it has deleted the attachment. So if I go back and refresh this screen, the attachment has gone from the top. And after a few seconds, it moves forward and deletes the incident as well. So if I go over here and I click refresh, that record is no longer found. So that brings us to the end of this video. As you saw, there are new process actions which are available for ServiceNow with starting AgilePoint NX version 8.0. Thanks a lot for your time.